As you said, I am Flossie Hall. I am a former active duty military spouse. My husband just retired about 6 weeks ago, which is a new identity and a new feeling for us. But I am a serial entrepreneur, but most importantly, a fierce advocate for my fellow military spouses and service members and families.
I am curious, did you come from an entrepreneurial family?
Absolutely not. I didn't even know what the word entrepreneur meant until I was far into my first business. I had to Google it, and I didn't even know a single business owner growing up. And until my first venture, I had never even taken a business class. So trial by fire all day.
What was that first business?
My first company was called Healthy Mama. It was a meal prepping company. I started out of San Diego. I started it out of necessity due to my own unemployment struggles. My path was supposed to be medical school. I took my MCATs. I was educated. I had bachelor's degrees. I was ready to go, and I just couldn't. So I accidentally started a meal prepping business out of my home kitchen, and people were paying me for it. I needed income, but I saw a need that I could fill. I saw a talent that I seemed to have, and I ran with it. And within our first year, I'd moved to a commercial facility, and we generated $990,000 in revenues. And without ever understanding business, I say I did everything wrong 3 times before I did it the right way, but I just kept leaping and going for it.
How long was it then before you became a military spouse, or were you a military spouse at the time?
I was already a military spouse. I married my husband when he was about 4.5 years into his career. He just retired at 20. So I had about 16 years of military spouse life. The first part of our marriage, I was in school. I was a student. We had young children at home. I have 4 children now. And my path for about 7 or 8 of those first years was school continuously. Every state we moved to, I just wanted to become a doctor. So I struggled transitioning from state to state, college to college, dropping classes, picking up classes. And finally, about 10 years ago, I did it. I graduated, took those MCATs twice. Don't tell anybody that. But I did it, and I felt a sense of, triumph. And then it was suddenly followed by a sense of defeat, which most military spouses know. When chasing any big goal, career, or something you need for yourself, the military will quickly tell you, no, we need you to stay at home and take care of the family and hold the fort down while the service member goes and serves. So that was a hard pill to swallow after that long of a fight.
How help us understand that, because I think most of us don't really understand the realization of that. I mean, being an entrepreneur is like, you're making up the rules. You find a problem, you solve the problem, you go out there, you go in the free marketplace and you do that. Yet it sounds like there are some people telling you what you can and can't do.
Yeah, and I didn't know anything about, the national problems of military spouses. I was still in my tiny bubble of my own family and my own town and our own needs. And I just know that when I couldn't get into medical school, I started applying for jobs, and I didn't get a single interview. I mean, for months, I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I have double degrees. I graduated with honors. I have published research. I was like, how's nobody picking me up for these minimum wage jobs, cleaning glassware in a lab? And I quickly realized after, building my own business and then going on to hire hundreds of military spouses that I needed to be the change first in my own circle, but that this wasn't just a local problem or a San Diego problem or a Flossie problem, but this is a military spouse problem. And they do have one of the highest unemployment demographics, or highest unemployment rates of any demographic in the country, because of the demands on our time. We move every 1 to 3 years. We're often left in cities or countries where we have no support systems, no family, no friends, no contacts or connections. And we're dropped there and told to quickly unpack your house, figure out who the dentist is, figure out how to get the kids registered for school. Your spouse is gone now, like they're out the door. You're doing it by yourself. And by the time you come up for air, you're like, oh, wait, I need a job, or I need money, or what about me and my dreams and my goals? And before you blink, you're moving again. And you're like, well, now we're moving in 6 months. I can't really get a job now because it's not worth it. And now I got to pack the house, buy a new house, do it all over again. And it's this wash, rinse, repeat of this terrible cycle of you just get beat down and you're told no. And without flexible employment or remote employment or translocatable employment or entrepreneurial adventures where you could demand your own time and say, this is what I'm going to do. If you have a standard job, they're just going to not hire you because they think you're going to leave in a year or two. Or if you're lucky enough, you are going to leave in a year or two and you've got to do it all over again. It's just incredibly difficult for military spouses to, even survive, let alone thrive with their careers and their goals.
So I'm guessing that in an area like San Diego, all the employers are well aware of what those challenges are, and they've had, it's like we'll try to hire military wives, and then they come and go, just like you said. And they said, we invest all this money and then we train them, we do all the things we do, and then they're gone. So it's a transient workforce. And yet I get the sense that even transient businesses, I was a chef for many years, and in the university system here in Santa Barbara, and the workforce is all transient. You have, servers and stuff, they're working while they're in school and then they're gone. Are you saying it's hard to even get those kinds of jobs? I mean, you were saying washing glassware in the lab was even hard.
Yeah, I feel like most employers can spot a military spouse's resume from a mile away. We call it Swiss cheese, right? It has holes and gaps in it where you were employed in Idaho and then you went unemployed for 2 years, and then you were employed in, San Diego, and then you were unemployed, and your resume doesn't make sense. It's like, oh, you have
Mm.
degrees in biology and psychology. Why did you work at the Gap? Why did you work at an apartment complex? And it's like, well, I needed any money that I could get with a schedule that worked around my spouse's schedule. So that often included nights or weekends or commission-based jobs or bartending or coffee serving or waitressing. But yes, I have degrees and I'm educated and I can do a better job. But they spot those resumes and they're confused, right? So part of the problem and a lot of what's going on the corporate side of those advocating for military spouses is just advocating how to read a spouse's resume, but also look past it and
Mm.
interview the candidate and look at the skills and understand what they bring to the table instead of, being completely puzzled by a non-traditional resume that they get in front of them. So I didn't even get an opportunity. Like I said, I did published genetic research and I was just trying to get my foot in the door in one of the biotech hubs of America, San Diego. I couldn't get an interview. I was like, I won a prestigious researcher award for University of Michigan. How can I not get an interview? And they looked at my resume and they're like, well, you haven't worked in 9 years and you've lived in 4 states. And these are random odd jobs that you did have. And I'm like, but I promise I'm amazing if you just give me a chance.
So at some point you decide to do something about that. There's a fire burning in you. Otherwise you wouldn't have been able to start businesses and do as much as you've done. And so you had to solve the problem for yourself, right? How I need to solve my own unemployment problem first. At some point though, there was a snap. So that inciting incident where you said, hold it, I'm not alone in this. And you really have reached out and are nationally recognized as a voice for this problem. Tell us a little bit about that snap that happened where you said, hold it, it's bigger than me.
Yeah, I couldn't get hired and I accidentally started this business out of my home kitchen where the second someone paid me, a light bulb went off and I went, wait, I can just hire myself. That was the first light bulb. Nobody told me that when, a decade ago, when you walked into fleet and family centers or resource centers on base, they said, here's your government job, or here's how you get a government job, or here's how you land a contract job on base. That was basically all they told you. I was like, nobody told me I could just start a business or hire
Mm,
myself or
mm.
make my own money because now my kids are working with me or in the kitchen next to me, or I choose when
Oh,
and
that must
how
have
I
been
work.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I was like, this is amazing. Nobody gave me this option. So one, why isn't anybody talking about this? But the very first people I hired to help me were other military spouses who
Right.
also couldn't find employment. And I said, hey, come work with me, bring your kids with you. We'll trade off and on based on schedules and duty schedules and TDYs and deployments. Like we'll support each other. And then
Hmm.
the more spouses I hired within that company, we were able to hire 110 military spouses in my first company. I went on and I said, you know what? If I can build a business to 7 figures, which I also found out was a really big deal, why can't other spouses do this? Why
Hmm.
aren't people advocating for entrepreneurship? And once you get a spouse to build a business, they almost always hire other spouses. We are solving our own problems. And there are some great spouse organizations out there, like Instant Teams and others that many know that they're solving the problem by creating massive workforces of other spouses. Um, so light bulb one was I can hire myself. Two was now I have the power to hire military spouses and set an example of flexible employment that matched their needs with a supportive ecosystem inside. That was incredibly important. And then three, that I just felt like if nobody taught me these things, I'm going to go start shouting from the rooftop of,
Hmm.
you can be your own boss. This is how you do it. Or if you're an employer, you need to be hiring spouses. And I haven't shut up since. Prior to COVID, nobody understood that you could build a business or work from a laptop and Wi-Fi. It was this
Right.
foreign concept,
Right.
right? And I had been doing it for years. And I was like, why is all our educational training in person for, spouses? They can't get to your workshops. They're all over the world. They have demands on their time. But since COVID, they're like, oh, people can work from home. They
Right.
can take their jobs with them. They can work from a laptop and be dependable and do it from Georgia or Texas or Italy, that spouse is still going to show up. So I think mindsets have incredibly shifted to open so many more doors for spouses and moms in general who
Hmm.
have high demands on their time. But I think it's less about these companies, saying we have jobs for spouses and more about the flexibility and resources for spouses that I could get offered a job all day, but if I don't have childcare or I can't afford childcare, I still can't work for you. If I don't have flexible working hours, where if a kid gets sick and kid two gets sick and then kid three gets sick and then I get sick, I'm not unreliable. I just have nobody to call to come help me. I don't have an aunt or a grandma or a friend down the street. Typically, my next door neighbor is my emergency contact who I met 5 minutes ago. You have to create a support system for these spouses with jobs, flexibility, access to childcare, and understanding to their lifestyle that it's not always up to us. We want to work. We're dedicated when we can work, but some days we just have a lot on our plates.
I'm assuming that these challenges extend to the men
Mm.
who are the spouses of, there's a lot of women in the military. And I don't know what those numbers are, but is this the same problem for the men at home?
It is a military spouse is a military spouse. The problem is that 94% of military spouses are also women, and women have a whole set of, psychological issues from imposter syndrome to not applying for things they don't feel qualified
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
Men have a much higher rate of just putting themselves out there and going for all of it and saying, I could do that. Women typically aren't as bold as that. So we do suffer with pay gaps and like I said, imposter syndrome to even put ourselves out there because we
Mm.
feel like we're not qualified. But men experience the same unemployment issue. And I actually have a friend who runs a great organization out of Nevada for veterans now. He's a veteran and a spouse. And until his spouse got stationed overseas, he found himself unemployed for the first time ever. And he was taking care of the kids. And he goes, I never knew what my spouse went through all those years. And now here I am. I physically cannot work because I'm in Italy and there's these rules and regulations on when you can and can't get jobs and how you work. And he felt lost and didn't know what to do with himself. So it's equal whether you're a male or a female. Females typically have higher odds against them in the workforce, but it's a military spouse problem.
Help me understand the emotional part of this, because you're alone. you are a mom, you've got the kids, your husband, your spouse in this case, is at war, and they might be in combat, they may be behind the lines and safe, but they're still gone, and you're doing things by, so not, you have all these other challenges and this big one of worrying about him. How
Mhm.
does that, because I know being an entrepreneur, I mean, you're all in like that. That's all you're thinking about. And then, oh, I've got to be a mom. I got to deal with the kids. And oh yeah, is my husband, going to get shot? I mean, that's a real thing. That feels like it triple compounds the psychological impact.
It does. The emotional impact of the lifestyle of military spouses and the sheer weight of pressure that they have on their
Yeah.
shoulders is just unbelievable. You beat up on yourself continuously
Mm.
because at the end of the day, you get, your spouse is squared away with work. They stroll right into their job. All the house stuff falls on you. They deploy, you move the family, you feed everyone, you clothe everyone, you do all the things to take care of all the humans. But at the end of the day, you go, who's taking care of me?
Mm.
Who's looked out for me? I want a career, or I want to be a human, or maybe I just want to go out with my girlfriends on Friday night, and not have to worry about it. But it creates resentment in military spouses, and that resentment can come out in your parenting styles. It can come out in your marriage. It decreases the retention rate of our military overall, because if the spouse is not happy, you are not going to re-enlist for another 4 to 6 years or stay in for the 20, because that spouse says, I'm moving back home. I'm done with this. You're either out or we're done. So if the spouse can't find meaningful, gainful employment or work-life balance, or a community that uplifts and holds them and supports them through this lifestyle, our service members are getting out in droves, and millions and billions of dollars are being lost by our government, because they're training the talent, but they're losing the talent at the same time. So it creates social and emotional havoc for a military spouse to deal with the pressures, and then add in deployments, or special operations, who have like an incredibly immense amount of pressure on them. We were in the special warfare community in San Diego for 8 years, and my spouse was never home. And half the time I didn't even know where he was at. And I was just like, let me know when you think you can come home. So it's just to be able to say, I'm going to work or run my business, but also do all the doctor's appointments, kids things, school things, cook, clean, everything, knowing you could have a support system. You just get resentful and battered and exhausted every day, where sometimes you just need to like look up from the haze and say, this is a lot.
You've given us a lot to think about, Flossie. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.